In the previous movie, we added the new action, which will display a form and submit those form values over to the create action. New and create work together as a pair, and together they make up the create portion of CRUD. New displays the form, create processes the form. In this movie, we'll be looking at create. Let's start out by looking at the steps that it takes to process the form. There are four main steps. First, we're going to take the form parameters and we're going to instantiate a new object using them. Then we'll try to save that object. If the save succeeds, we'll redirect somewhere else. In our case, we're going to redirect to the list action. If the save fails, then we want to redisplay the form so that the user can fix the problems and resubmit it. Now you may be thinking, well, wait, why would the save fail? Why would this object not save? So far, we haven't put any kind of data validation into our application, but eventually we will. And that will allow us to make sure that the data that's received in the form matches the criteria we want to allow in the database. So for example, if we want to limit the number of characters that can be in the name of a subject, we could put in some data validation that would raise an error and cause the save to fail if the name that was submitted by the form was longer than that limit. Even though we won't cover data validation until later on, I still want us to include this as one of our steps because it's an essential part of the way that forms get processed in the controller. Let's start by going into our subjects controller. I'm going to add a new action for create. To start with, I'm just going to paste in those four steps. Instantiate a new object using form parameters. We saw how to do that in the movie on form basics. At subject equals subject.new, and into that subject new, we can just dump the params for subject. And that's going to be a hash of all those form attributes that have been wrapped up together as the subject param. So we just take param subject and create a new object. Next, we need to save that object at subject.save. We know how to do that. Then there's a conditional here. If the save succeeds, we do one thing. If it fails, we do something else. Well, save returns true or false. So therefore, we can just say if it saves, then we can do one thing here. Else, we'll do something else. Just drop down here. If the save succeeds, then redirect. We know how to do a redirect. We saw that earlier. Redirect to action list. And if the save fails, we want to redisplay the form. So let's ask ourselves, where is that form? Well, it's right here. It's in the new template. So we want to render that template. Now, we don't want to just redisplay the template. We want to make sure that that template has the values that the user submitted to us. It would be very frustrating for the user if they filled out 40 different form fields, then submitted it, and we said, oops, there was a problem with one of your fields, and we gave them a blank form to fill out all over again. So we want those values to pre-populate it. And because of the way Form 4 works, it looks at this instance variable, subject, and whatever values are in there is what it will use to pre-populate the form fields. So that's exactly what was submitted. So that's perfectly appropriate. We don't have to do anything except make sure that this is an instance variable, that it has the @ sign in front of it. This, for example, won't work. We need that @ sign. So there's one more thing that I want you to notice here, which is that because we have this if-else statement, one of two things will be true. Either it'll succeed and we'll redirect, or it will fail and we'll render a different template. In either one of those cases, we don't need a template for create. The user will either see the list or they'll see the form. All right, let's save that and let's try it out. Let's go into terminal first. Notice that I'm in the root of my Rails application. I'll launch the server. Then I'll jump over to Firefox, local host 3000 subjects/new. That's where the form is. There's the form. Let's try it out. Let's try test subject. Position will be 8 and visible false. Create subject. There it is. Notice that there's our test subject. So it works. We successfully processed the form and added it to the database. Now I'm noticing as I look at this subjects that we don't have any way to add another subject. If we want to add another one, we need a link into everything that we've just done. So let's do that by just jumping back over here to our list template, and right at the top of the table, let's just add a list. So we'll add a new subject. Now when we go back here and we reload the page, add a new subject pops up at the top. That takes us here where we can add a new subject, or we can go back to the list. Now we've successfully put in both parts of the create part of CRUD, displaying a web form and processing the form. Next, let's look at how we can edit an existing record.